We are running a dig on behalf of Salford University, and we are digging late 18th century, early 19th century workers' housing on Chapel Street in Salford. This part we're digging here is back-to-back workers' housing here, which is right next to George Street. At the moment we're excavating a house that was originated from the late 18th century, but it developed into shops in the early 19th century. So this house here is a butcher's. That was its last use. It had wooden floorboards, you can see the slats running across it. It's quite a strange mixture here. We've got early housing, and then we've got late walls, which we think are related to late workshop factory buildings on the site. We think there was a bike workshop, which is why we're getting like the juxtaposition of old walls and new walls in the same area.
How many houses is there on the site?
We've got, at the moment, we've got 1, 2, 3, about 4 houses running east to west along the site. The back of the houses is behind us. They were the yards. The front of the house is facing onto Chapel Street.
This story, the cellar dwellers, people actually dwelt in the cellars of the houses?
Yes.
How many would live in there?
A whole family would live in the cellar. Not really cramped conditions, very damp. They'd even have a fire in there, which would make the conditions very smoky as well. But the landlords start to rent out these cellar dwellings because basically they're running out of room in the industrial period to house people. And then another family would live in a room above them, and another family would live in a room above them. So very cramped conditions, and we can see by the brickwork, the brickwork's very bad, very roughly made. There was not much care or consideration taken in the construction of these buildings, and this is coming to light now as we're excavating. We can see sometimes there's not even any mortar used in the bricks, and sometimes the rooms we're finding are only partitioned by 1 brick thick between each family's cell.
So they're quite Spartan living conditions, to say the least, weren't they?
Yeah, very, yeah.
About sanitation and...
Originally there would have been hardly anything at all. The toilets would have been outside the house. No drainage systems at all. But we are finding, as we're excavating later, the sanitation was improved, and we're finding evidence where pipes have been put in later.
What evidence have we found of the people living in houses?
We found lots of, the majority of finds are getting glass bottles, beer bottles, furniture polish bottles, and cream pots as well. And in this house here we found a butcher's sign. It's advertising a kind of spice mix you use with chicken. So we found a metal plate, which is in the perfect place because this was a butcher's in its last phase of its occupation.
Did we know the name of the butcher's?
No.
Could we not trace it off the census record?
Well, you can. It is on the straight. It is on the census record.
So this is George Street.
This is George Street. Yeah.
And would this be Rose Street?
That Barrow Street behind us,
right.
And George Street here, and Chapel Street's always been here.
And how long is the dig going to continue for?
Well, we are looking to take volunteers next week. We have given an extension till next week for the volunteers, so we're taking anybody who wants to come and dig, as long as you're over 16.
Right. Now, the artefacts that you found, will they be on public display? Or?
They're being cleaned up at the moment, and they will be put in our stores. And hopefully there will be a chance for the public to come and view the things that the artefacts that we found. Now we're in the second half of the site, which we found the earliest dwellings on the site, which are on the 1819 map. They haven't been disturbed at all, which is brilliant. We were worried that later buildings on top of them would have cut through their foundations. We know there was a bakery on this site in the 1920s, 1930s, but thankfully a lot has survived, and which we can see today. And on this part we have cellar dwellings, and we have a corridor separating cellar dwellings from just one floor, like shed type constructions, and that corridor was an outside courtyard. But we're finding, it's typical of these cellar dwellings, we're finding obvious evidence of people living in the cellars, families living in them. We're finding hearths, and we're finding possible chimney type structures. Again, the standard of brickwork is very poor. The types of brick were very poor as well. The quality of brick is very poor as well. And very small rooms. They're only about 4 meters by 3 meters, and in each room would have been one family living in there. And what we also is interesting, we're finding the entrances to each house as well, which has survived in this corridor here. Sanitation wise, there's no evidence at all of any toilets. I mean, I'm not sure if that's because we haven't uncovered them yet, or there just wasn't any. We know on the maps there was one water tap for this whole street here, so they all shared this one tap.
A communal tap?
A communal tap, and it's noted on the plan by the letters WT.
And how many people would that cater for?
Well, if there was a family of 4 living in each cellar, it would be probably maybe 40-50 people for one tap.
What do you think is the most exciting artefact that we've found?
The most exciting probably thing we found are just the old bottles, really. The old bottles, lots of beer bottles. I don't know if that's anything to do with their state of mind at the time that they needed to drink. And lots of, I think we found a poison bottle as well. A few teaspoons, a few bone-shaped artefacts.
So is this Salford's answer to Angel Meadows dig?
Yes, it's our own version of Angel Meadows. It's different. We have different things in preservation. You can actually walk around this site as if you were living there, which is the great thing about this site. It's slightly like Pompeii, I suppose.
Salford's Pompeii.
Yeah.